Hi, I'm Mark. I've been developing websites since the turn of the century. Today we're going to talk about comparing WordPress to a regular vanilla HTML website or PHP website. And some people are going to be saying, well, that's kind of crazy. I mean, WordPress has all the bells and the whistles. Why would you ever want to go down the route with a plain HTML site when you've got everything in WordPress? And this is a really great question. And I just to confess, I still have clients. We update their website once every year, and I've been doing that for the past decade and a half. So it's not something that everything defaults to WordPress. And it's fascinating because the use cases for WordPress are really distinctly different. I guess, and that depends on your temperament, of course, too. But they mostly are distinctly different, those use cases are, from regular HTML sites or regular PHP sites. So let's dig into this discussion. I mean, one of the first questions that you've got to ask yourself when you're working with a client is, who's going to be updating this? If the client's going to be updating it, okay, we're now getting into a territory that usually defaults to WordPress. Why is that? WordPress handles some things. It's just got this built-in functionality. One of the things, if a client's going to be updating a website, they're going to need some way of getting files either from their local desktop to the website server, or they're going to need some way to access the web server to update those files in a database. That is a discussion that normally goes straight over to WordPress because we're talking about a process called FTP, or File Transfer Protocol. And understanding that for things to change on the website, they need to first change on your desktop if you're going to upload. WordPress takes care of uploading images. It's got all of that functionality built in. And that's where, you're looking at something and you're saying, okay, why would I ever build something custom to upload when WordPress pretty much handles that out of the box? Well, we're going to dig in even more there, because when you first, let's go back to square one. You buy your domain name, you either do it at a web host and they set it all up for you, or you buy it from some external third party. Next, you're going to, if you buy it from an external third party, you're going to point that at your web domain server on your web host. And now you can do what's called one-click install, where you can have your host just click a button and all of a sudden WordPress is installed. That's gorgeous. That's going to work for a lot of problems, because they're going to handle a lot of the updating functionality, updating processes as well when you do that. I mean, you can go the painful route and go to wordpress.org and download the file, update your my config so you can talk to a database that you've set up in your web host, and then upload it to your web host and install it that way. And that's painful. And I do that too often. And I admit that's not the best idea sometimes, but I like that full granular control as well. And working with plugins too is a little bit of a sticky issue when you're doing one-click installs. But when you're talking about you've got the web host to set up for you, you're pretty much now in business. I mean, that WordPress is going to need a database connection. And one-click installs will usually create a user and password and a database name to go with that. So it builds the tables inside the host. Everything's taken care of. You start typing away, adding content, uploading images, and so forth. The other side of that is plain vanilla HTML or PHP or what have you is a process where it only takes, instead of all that elaborate setup, even with a one-click install, there's still database connection and so forth. With an HTML website, it's pretty much just create a folder inside your public_HTML folder on your website, and that's now the location of everything, and you can upload files whenever you want, and so forth. That is, I don't want to be melodramatic, but that's just too simple. Things can't be that easy. And there are times where the sooner you get your idea or your brain around what is going to be happening with this website. Are you going to be doing the updating, or is your client going to be doing the updating? If you're doing the updating, simplicity by all means. This, like I said, a decade and a half, clients updating their website once a year. There's some dynamic functionality there, but that's it. There's no overhead. There's no worry about updating themes or plugins or WordPress or any of that. That's a really nice problem to have, because on the other extreme is we've got clients with WordPress installs that aren't managed on the same server, so we have to update and do nice little happy indirect labor things to their websites as they go through the course of business throughout the year, and that repeats itself over and over whenever there's a critical update or what have you. So those are considerations that the sooner you know about that, the better. There's really not many updates to worry about on a static HTML website or even a small dynamic PHP website. Those are things that are just really wonderful to have, and it's bread and butter for some people. For some people, they wouldn't ever think about it because there's complexity there. The client matures, sells their business, now they want a new website or whatever, or their offspring take over the website. Now, a little more savvy there. We want to update content. That's the consideration as well. But it's a nice problem to have. But that WordPress system is, you look at WordPress as a great instant website. You look at it as a blog. You look at it as a content management system, and you can add a gazillion different plugins. There is a cost to that in processing time, and it'll slow that stuff down. But you can add all kinds of functionality to WordPress, and it's there for you. And there are some trade-offs there. The more plugins, obviously, you're going to be looking at slowed down processes. Maybe you need a better hosting company and so forth. And I recommend 2 hosting companies. Links are below. Those are considerations. And the sooner you get around that, or you get your brain around that, the better. That file transfer protocol that we talked about earlier, that FTP, where you're uploading files or you're taking files off the server and developing them or building them locally, that kind of leads into this next discussion of if WordPress is going to be the domain that you're working in, your clients will require some training there, obviously. And we talk about training in other videos, but there are some hurdles in WordPress. There are, anytime you get into the design realm, clients don't usually work in design, or if they do, great, then there's, the more savvy types can work with different page builder plugins. There are circumstances where that whole plugin environment and the themes that go with WordPress help out as well. But the training itself can be a bit of a hurdle, and that's like I said, I've got several other videos that deal specifically with different aspects of starting off training with WordPress and with page builder plugins that work with WordPress. But when it comes to custom solutions, WordPress obviously solves the FTP part, uploading, moving back and forth, deleting, editing. WordPress solves that and is connected to your database on your web host. You've got other functionality that is critical as a website grows in size. There are considerations such as sitemap. Another consideration is obviously search engine optimization, which is its own discussion entirely. But let it just be said that WordPress totally rocks when it comes to SEO. Google loves, and other search engines love WordPress. And if you've got good content, and you know how to manage just the layout and so forth, WordPress is semantically gifted when it comes to providing the right code and the right tags to search engines so that you're ranking okay. That being said, there is a billion regular websites out there that are PHP or are HTML static sites that are ranking wonderfully, and I've got history behind their domains. They've accumulated rank over the years. They're solid. They might not be updated as often as Google and other search engines would like, but they still have good ranking, and that is achieved basically with a set of tags that are carefully managed by the person who set it up. So that is, I think, when it comes to those discussions, you've really got some things that play nicely together, and it seems like now you're balancing, who's updating it, who's hosting it, how often is the website going to be updated, and those become very, very relevant questions. So whenever we talk about designing a website for a client, one of the number one things that comes up is obviously responsive design, so that you've got a website that renders properly for your desktop, your tablet, and your smartphone clients. And those are the big three. And mobile is obviously climbing higher and higher every year, so that now Google, the number one search engine in the world, essentially has a mobile-first indexing algorithm that pretty much prioritizes sites based on how they perform in mobile, and that's the main contributing ranking score for them. So that's something you're really going to want to consider too, because to get responsive design, you're going to be talking about two very distinct different animals, in the realm of WordPress versus a static HTML site or PHP site. WordPress pretty much out of the box has got that covered. And when you introduce page builders and themes, page builders like Elementor or Divi, or themes from anywhere, most of them have got that functionality built in, so that when you build something, okay, this is how it's going to render on desktop, here's how it's going to look on your smartphone, and that's really great. Your static website, however, your plain HTML or your PHP site is going to need a little extra tooling. It's going to need a framework called Bootstrap, and Bootstrap really roughens all these edges, and essentially you code inside of Bootstrap using HTML calls to classes and IDs based on how it sets up its rendering for resizing on different devices, and it solves the main pain points. In other words, how do you get this video iframe to conform to a screen that instantly goes from landscape to portrait mode, or from desktop size to your smartphone size, and just shrinking your browser window over can give you an idea of what that's all about. And that's really that's a big discussion. But what the great thing about it is, and this is going to lead into our development section, which is going to follow, the Bootstrap framework is nice to consider, and there are other ones like Tailwind, that's primarily CSS, I believe. That is going to be a cascading style sheet. I mean, Bootstrap has got JavaScript working in it, and it's got cascading style sheets, and that really works together very well. So when you're setting this up, you need a way to get that feedback loop, so that when you add a new feature to your website, it instantly shows. And for that to happen, you're going to need a development environment. And here is where things really take a turn, because WordPress has got those bells and those whistles. And I mean, it solves a lot of problems, and the problems that it doesn't solve can be solved with page builder add-ins such as Divi or Elementor or your theme of choice or any one of a gazillion plugins out there. And the plugin ecosystem for WordPress is thriving. Those to make that happen, you have to have pretty much a local installation of WordPress in your computer, on your computer. And to do that, we could go down this rabbit hole and save that for another discussion. But to be brief, WordPress is written mostly in PHP. And for you to run PHP locally, in other words, so that when you add a feature to your practice site, you can instantly see it. Even if you were going to have a practice website on the World Wide Web, you'd still have a little bit of lag between making an update and then previewing and so forth. And depending on your connection too, that might be more of a lag than you're comfortable with. But having a local installation is a prerequisite. And the development, we're going to talk about deployment here pretty soon too. That deployment is a little bit of a messy critter too, because there are other things that are going to be playing in that. But let's talk about development. That WordPress needs to be essentially hosted locally on a PHP server that's running Apache and has got a MySQL server attached to it. In the Linux world, this is called LAMP, or Linux Apache MySQL PHP. There's servers for Windows that allow you to store it inside of your local folder. It's called WAMP, and that, I know that sounds very heroic, and you definitely want to blast that out to the friends you're trying to impress. And then there's XAMPP, which is another great one. But this download, you set it up on your local computer. WordPress, you put WordPress in there. You configure it so that it connects to your MySQL database. And this is par for the course. These things have to happen. And that's why when you invest in that WordPress ecosystem, it's nice to know what you're going to need to build with up front so that the picture is clear. Now, once you've got that WAMP server running, you will be able to run WordPress. Now you can make all kinds of edits. You can design the layout. You can add your plugins and build right there and then. Conversely, you could also do this on a live website too, and just not permitting search engines to look at it. And that is a deeper discussion, but it also, allows you to share with a client or whatever. But that, I don't want to get ahead of myself there. That is something that we can build WordPress locally. So we've got that instant feedback loop, and that's how we would learn and make our decisions moving forward. You could take screenshots, send those to the client as well. And let's talk about the plain regular HTML site. All you need for that is a local folder anywhere on your computer. You open that folder up, or you create an HTML file in there. You call it index.html. You put that in there, and you open up Chrome or Firefox or what have you. Control O, and it looks in the folders. Open that folder, open that index file, press enter, boom. You've got your static site up there. You can do anything now. Download Bootstrap, put it in there, preload Bootstrap in your index.html file, and all of a sudden you're in production. You can design, you can do great things from there. And there's great HTML builders, JavaScript builders out there. One that very visual that I use all the time is called Pinegrow. Link is below. That is really that's really great because it's working in Bootstrap. It's giving you this visual feedback of what your page looks like. It's showing you the code, the styles. You really can't go wrong in learning that. That's got a yearly price, and it's also got a monthly subscription. That's really great. But anyway, what's going on here is you're doing all this stuff. You build this entire website You can build all your pages and your navigation, and there's places where you can get themes, just vanilla HTML themes, JavaScript themes as well, that you're looking at. All of a sudden you got a full website local, and you just pop that buddy up to the web server, and you've got a live website. WordPress, on the other hand, now we've got some issues there, because WordPress is pretty much URL driven, and it's not an easy process necessarily. You can get down a good workflow here. Once your clients approved it, it's good to go. You can export and you can import at the web server level. More of that in another video. But we've come down to the point where, you know, we've got that development, that feedback loop. You're developing locally. You've got pretty much everything set up for your deployment to the web server, and that's totally great. And where you're at now is, how is this going to be deployed? Well, you upload it to the server, get everything going up there. Client's got the login credentials, or client's happy with the static website, and you'll update it in a year and so forth. But let's talk about the final part of this video, which is maintenance. When most one-click installs, getting back to when we first installed WordPress, we had a one-click install, and most hosts will take care of updating the WordPress install itself. I don't know if they'll take care of updating all of the plugins that you're going to be adding, certainly the themes as well. I mean, that becomes a more manual process, but it is definitely something to consider. Your HTML site, you check it in a year. You cash the check from the hosting check from the client, and you do an update per their request. You leave it alone for a year. WordPress, you got to be a little bit more hands-on. That's more to do with, you're watching security updates. Subscribe to WordFence, most certainly. That's pretty important. Your plugins are going to have definite the update process there can be manual sometimes, and with respect to some updates might not be the best for your system. Definitely food for consideration there, not to be taken lightly. You definitely want rollback mechanisms. You can possibly find that, or you can find rollback mechanisms with your hosting company. That is something, though, that we approach with caution. When I first got into WordPress years ago, it was one of my biggest disgruntlements to have to deal with an update process, especially, let's say you've got the $1 million plugin, and that plugin suddenly gets stopped. They don't develop it anymore. They don't update it. And that was, your bread and butter. That was the prime functionality, for your particular WordPress install, your website. Maybe it involved business functions, etc. And all of a sudden, they're not updated anymore. Now you've got a problem. And that's something that, knowing that up front, dealing with reputable, most certainly dealing with reputable plugin developers who've got a history of not only frequent updates, but also responses to their critiques and their comments in WordPress.org or wherever you found this plugin, that really becomes a big deal. And that's something that before you install that plugin and you start relying on or tying business functions to it, you definitely want to make sure that you're dealing with somebody reputable there. And I know the plugins out there are amazing when it comes to functionality. Anytime you can add something out of the box, just one-click install, and all of a sudden, okay, we solved that calendar function. But all of a sudden, moving down the road, you've got problems, or it jinx with the rest of your other plugins, and all of a sudden now you got to roll something back, and that is a royal pain. And usually happens like 5:30 p.m. on a Sunday evening or something too. You know what? I have really talked a lot here, and it's time for a break. Get back to my iced coffee over there, which is now room temperature. Hey, I want to thank you for watching today. Subscribe, like, ring that bell below. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hope this has helped. Leave a comment below. Let me know what's going on. If you got questions, I'm here to help you. Nice chatting with you. Talk soon. Bye now.